So much diversity. Look at the size. The water's red. Why, though? It'll be a fun mystery to unravel.
Hey! Over here!
Have you ever been to a restaurant where the food is absolutely delicious? Whether it be Thai or Indian or steak. Let's say steak. You go there, you have this delicious steak. It melts in your mouth. It's beautiful. It's the best steak you've ever had. The only problem is, everything else about the restaurant is crap. The location it's placed in, the parking, the staff are rude, the prices are way too much. And so you still go there because the steak is delicious, but you have to endure everything else around it. That's how I feel about Monster Hunter Wilds. I feel like it's a game that gets its core mechanic so right. It's fantastic. In fact, for Monster Hunter games, it is the best at what it does. It's the best Monster Hunter game, in existence. The downside to this is, for me personally, there are lots of issues with the game's UI, the game's menus, and just the general feel of the game from moment to moment. So, if anyone's never played a Monster Hunter game before, I'm no expert. I'll just put this on the table right now. I've played Worlds. I loved Worlds. I was aware of the games before Worlds, but they didn't have that type of open world element to them. They were more niche. And so when Worlds came out, I saw what they were offering. I thought, yeah, I'll get into this. This looks great, and it was, and it still is. The environments are full of life, endemic life. The creatures, they react in a very realistic way. If you injure them, they'll try and limp away and heal or rest. Some creatures will fight each other. Some of the bigger creatures will eat some of the smaller creatures. It feels like there's a real ecosystem happening in front of you. And that is an awesome thing to see, and I wish more developers would pay attention to things like that, because it kind of immerses you in that world. I also felt like the levels themselves had a level of verticality to them, especially the jungle level near the start. You could go up 3, 4, 5 levels, and there were loads of different ways of getting around. There were vines to climb up, there were vines to swing off, the beetles to rappel off, there's just all different kinds of ways, even swimming underwater in hidden pools and things like that. And yeah, it really did an excellent job of bringing the Monster Hunter game to the masses. There are so many things wrong with the game around the main core of gameplay, which kind of take away from that great feeling you get when you kill a monster. Things like the UI being very cumbersome, things like the menu system being atrocious, and the general problems that have come with the game being released too early. Now, looking at the PlayStation version and the console versions of Monster Hunter Wilds, they've arrived in a pretty decent state, so I'm glad that at least that side of the gaming sphere is getting a decent game. Unfortunately, Capcom have a pretty spotty history on PC ports. Their Resident Evil games, or in the remasters they've done, have been pretty damn good, so they can bring out a PC port that's decent. Unfortunately, the last 2 games have been awful. Dragon's Dogma 2 came out with an absolute litany of issues, and so we are in the same position here. There are some pretty bad graphical problems. The entire mesh can break down on some fights, and it becomes unplayable. That's happened to myself and at least 2 of my other friends who were playing the game. Secondly, you've got really awful textures, and I've been astounded by how bad they are. We're talking like PS2, PS3 era textures. And even when the textures are working properly, you've got this horrible shimmering, like almost like your graphics cards going on the fritz. And I don't quite understand how Capcom are happy to release this game like this. I truly am appalled at some of the texture work in this game. So the biggest problem with the PC version of Wilds is the optimization, and I'm just going to say it, the game runs like shit on even on the highest computers you can get hold of. Even on a 5090, you're only getting just barely 60 frames a second, which that's just awful. That's just atrocious, and Capcom should be ashamed of themselves for releasing a game in such a pitiful state. And a lot of people have theorized the reason for this is that Capcom wanted the revenue from the PC version to improve their yearly projections to hit their targets. And so they've made a calculated gamble and said, well, we're going to get some flack over this, but the lost sales and the refunds will be far better than having to miss out on this revenue. Which just kind of tells you what Capcom think of the gamers. They'd rather push out a shittily optimized game and make people suffer through that, just so they can please their investors and their shareholders. And I think that is pretty much where we stand with Capcom right now. And while I'm complaining about Capcom, there's also the issue of DLC and microtransactions in the game. Miraculously, the review cycle, there were no microtransactions. It was amazing. They were just not there. And suddenly, out of nowhere, once the review cycle's finished and all the main reviews are in place, suddenly all the microtransactions just suddenly appear. And they did the same with Dragon's Dogma 2 as well. And I think this is a really shitty way to do things. They know damn well that microtransactions are not seen as a good thing in games, especially for some of the obscure things they charge people for, like redoing your character's appearance. So they wait till the review cycle's done and then they slide them in quietly, and hey presto. Okay, right, enough complaining about the game and Capcom. What do I actually think about the game's core mechanics? I think they're great. I think they're really interesting, fun, exhilarating. You are hunting monsters and you are carving them up, taking them back to your hut, your tent, your blacksmith. You're making new suits of armor and weapons and all kinds of other bits and bobs out of them, and then you're going back out with your improved armor, your improved weapons, and fighting bigger and better monsters. So the game's loop is there, but to move the story forward, you have these central group of characters. You've got your character, who you create at the start of the game. The character creation, by the way, is fantastic, really detailed, loads of options, down to irises and all the rest of it. Really impressed with that. And then once your character's created, you start the cutscene at the beginning, you see the introduction, and then you meet basically the characters at the beginning of the game that you're going to be with the whole way through. They're very shallow, cardboard cutout characters. They say lots through the story, but they never really say anything of any worth or any substance. I find the characters and the dialogue in Monster Hunter Wilds to be childish, vapid of any kind of real story beats. It's just a vehicle to get you to the next place, to the next ecosystem, to the next part in the story. And I ended up skipping some of the story just because it was so bad. I'd be sat there listening to them drone on about all kinds of things, and it's just, there's nothing being really said. It's just words. And the acting is, oh my god, the acting is terrible. It's awful. I'd expect a 6-year-old in a school play to do better, and there's no two ways about it. I don't know why they insist on having these really, over dramatic moments where no one's saying anything, and they all sound like they're having some type of seizure, with these weird noises coming out of them, but there's nothing actually being said. Now, maybe that's a manga thing, maybe that's a cultural thing, I don't know. But to me, after coming off a game like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and you know, even some other games I've played recently, and then coming back to Monster Hunter Wilds, it's the contrast is like night and day. So yeah, in terms of story and acting, it's really weak. But again, that's not why we're here, is it? That's just the backdrop. The main thing is the monster hunting. So I've just realised I haven't actually given a score early this time. I've forgotten to do that earlier in the review, so I will endeavour to do that for next time. So sorry about that, guys, but my review score for Monster Hunter Wilds on PC is 78 out of 100. Like I said, it is a good game if that's what you're here for, just for the monster hunting. The graphics, the physics, all that stuff that's involved with the actual fights themselves, seeing the monsters come together and battle each other is fantastic. And if that's why you're here, which most people are, then it's a fantastic game, and I would recommend it for that reason. If you're playing on PC, which I assume this is why you're at my channel, I can't recommend it at the moment. The game is just still not optimized to a point where I can recommend it. It is woeful, the state it's been launched in, and Capcom really need to do better for PC ports. Maybe it's the Ori engine, it's hard to say, but they need to do some more work. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. I think I've put across everything I need to say about the game. I think if they do another game, which I'm pretty sure they will, I hope they take a really long look at the menu system and the UI and make it a lot more streamlined and a lot more intuitive. Because I think, like I've said earlier in the review, it's like wading through concrete sometimes. You're trying to have fun, and all these really antiquated systems are pulling you out of the experience. So maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe they're so stuck in their ways that that's just how they do things, but I think they can do so much better, because the core concept to Monster Hunter Wilds is amazing. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the review, and if you did, then please leave a like and leave a comment, and let's have a discussion. If you think I'm being a bit too harsh on the game, yeah, leave a discussion comment, and I'll have a chat with you. I would love to chat to people about this game, and I'll leave it there. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Take care, and I'll see you soon.